Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Definition, aka your friendly neighborhood spoiler man, and this video we're breaking down some of the insane details in Thor Ragnarok. Throughout the entire MCU, Thor has arguably gone on the greatest arc. Since his first film appearance back in 2011, he's changed from a selfish, self-centered character to one of Earth's mightiest defenders. I've loved watching him grow into a more comedic character, along with Chris Hemsworth, who's really made the role his own. Throughout this video, we're going to be discussing some of the best details in the film that we haven't really seen pointed out in other videos. There will be heavy spoilers here, so if you haven't had a chance to check out the film yet, then I highly recommend that you turn off now. Make sure you subscribe to the channel to never miss a Marvel breakdown, and please drop a thumbs up if you love the God of Thunder as much as we do. With that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into our breakdown of Thor Ragnarok. Okay, so the movie opens with the Marvel Studios logo burning up in a scene that is called the Great Prophecy. This burning of an institution is of course mirrored in Asgard, which is destroyed at the end by Surtur. Thor narrates his past, and we learn that this is the mission that he set out on after the prophecy in Age of Ultron. He jokingly says that he fought a robot, which was of course Ultron, and that he then set out on a quest to find the Infinity Stones, which would of course pay off in Infinity War. Unbeknownst to us, Thanos was also on this quest at the same time, and the two cross paths at the end of the movie. The character comes face to face with Surtur, and the two talk about the fall of Asgard. Thor busts out and he blasts his way through Surtur's army to the Immigrant song by Led Zeppelin. The Asgardians become immigrants at the end of the movie and end up settling on Earth in Endgame. As the song plays, we can hear not only the phrase Valhalla I'm coming, which is a reference to the Asgardian afterlife, but also the lyrics we'll drive our ships to the new lands. This is of course foreshadowing for the ending, in which Thor sets out for Earth. We cut to Scourge trying to impress two women, and these actually appear at the end of the movie on the bridge, which could be the thing that reminds him of the life he used to lead and may be the reason for his triple cross of Hela. We hear that Heimdall was charged with negligence by Odin and that he fled, which is why Scourges had to take his place. This is the first clue that Loki is now Odin, but another one comes in the form of the theatre, which we can see has been changed to look like Loki's helmet. Loki has a statue and a play plays out in which Matt Damon acts as Loki. Luke Hemsworth plays Thor and Sam Neill plays Odin. Matt Damon actually played Loki in Dogma, and this is a nice little reprisal of the role for the MCU. Loki apologises for the Tesseract, which is of course a callback to the Avengers, and he also says sorry for turning Thor into a frog. We've never saw this in the MCU, but it could be a reference to the TV show Ultimate Spider-Man, in which Thor is turned into one by Loki. As Loki dies, we can also hear the music that we heard during the funeral scene for Frigga in Thor the Dark World. Thor brings Loki's facade crashing down, and he puts his hand behind Loki's head as he throws out Mjolnir. Thor says that nothing will stop it from returning to his hand, but Hela does later on, and this line subtly sets up just how much of a threat she is. Loki gives up, and they head back to Earth to get Odin. However, the old people's home that he was left at is being demolished, and we can see that this is called Shady Acres, which is the same one that Ace Ventura visits to find information on Ray Finkel. Loki says it's not his fault as he can't see the future because he's not a witch. In Endgame, when Thor returns to Asgard and sees Frigga, she says that she can tell he's from the future because she was raised by witches, and therefore we know in the MCU that they have the capability to do this. Thor is also wearing a green t-shirt over the top of a purple one, which are of course the Hulk's colours in comic books. Two girls appear and ask to take a picture with him, and one of them is Taylor Hemsworth, aka Chris's cousin. Doctor Strange sends Loki through a portal and leaves a card for Thor, who arrives at Bleecker Street to confront the wizard. Strange is actually wearing his yellow gloves from the comics, and though they don't appear later in the series, it's nice that they at least give a nod to them here. When they warp to a seated position, we can also see the restraint suit that Strange used on Caecilius and Doctor Strange hanging on the wall behind them. Strange offers Thor tea, and this comes in the same cup that the Ancient Ones served him tea in at Comitage. He also plucks a strand of hair from Thor in order to create a spell to send them directly to Odin. This actually creates the Triquetra rune, which is a symbol that is used throughout Asgard. It first appeared on Thor's hammer all the way back in Thor 1 when Odin was placing a spell upon it. In this movie, it also appears in the throne room and crypt on Asgard and is clearly tied to the family. Loki unsheathes his knives, and we can actually also see Hela do this in the movie too, as well as Thor. All three draw their swords in the same way, which could show that they were all trained in a similar manner by Odin as children. They're sent to Tonesburg, which Odin remarks as being home. This would come to be the area that the Asgardians settle upon in Endgame, but it also ties back to several other MCU movies. Centuries ago, the Frost Giants arrived on Tonesburg in an attempt to conquer Midgard, but they were stopped by Odin. The area was where the Tesseract was hidden, and we saw it appear in Captain America the First Avenger. It of course appears here, and then as the home for the resettled Asgardians in Endgame. In Endgame we can also see a gladiator walking around in the background, so it looks like they settled there with the colony too. Before Odin dies, they all sit down on a rock together, and Odin and Thor are on the same side, whereas we can see an uprising in the rock symbolically separating Loki from the pair. This shows that he is an outcast from them, and the film is very much about Thor and Loki repairing their relationship in the wake of their father's death. Odin's death brings forth Hela from the underworld, and it really kickstarts the movie from this point. Thor always believed that he was the firstborn, but there were actually hints that this wasn't the case throughout the MCU. In Age of Ultron, in his vision, Heimdall calls him the first son of Odin, but not the firstborn, because he knows that Hela exists. We learn that she draws her strength from Asgard, and we can see this in her costume design. In Tonesburg, her clothing is heavily torn, but it repairs upon her arrival at the kingdom. The antlers on her helmet also grow longer the more time that she spends there, and her outfit gets greener too. This showcases her increase in strength, and also that her power is tied to the kingdom. Thor throws his hammer at her and she catches it. We can actually see from the way that the strap is defying gravity and lifting outwardly that Thor is trying to pull it back himself, but she's so strong that he's unable to. We can also see in the exchange that Thor has a braid with black hair in it. The character threaded Loki's hair with his own in Age of Ultron, and this is carried across here. Just too bad that Stanley had to cut it. They travel back through the Bifrost, to which Hela follows them, and this is how she is able to get to Asgard. Loki is knocked out first, and we learn in the film that he has been on Saga for a while. We also discover from the Grandmaster's age that time moves differently there, which is how he is millions of years old but doesn't look it. This also means that the Hulk was likely on the planet for years and years, rather than just the two that he missed on Earth. Hela kills two of the Warriors 3 and then the third one upon arriving at Asgard. Sif doesn't get killed in this movie, and she has been rumoured to be returning in Thor Love and Thunder. She also appeared in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so yeah, there's a lot of room for her to come back. Valkyrie shows up and captures Thor, and we learn that her name is Scrapper 142, which is a reference to the Incredible Hulk issue 142 in which she featured. She takes him to her ship, and there are hints that she's from Asgard as Thor says he's the son of Odin, and Valkyrie replies with "Many apologies, your majesty." This shows that she is aware of Odin, and therefore is from the kingdom. We also get a tease of Beta Ray Bill as one of the gladiator faces on the Champion's Tower. Hela rips it up on Asgard, and we then see Thor moving through a tunnel on the way to meet the Grandmaster. The song Pure Imagination can be heard in the background, and this is a nod to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which also features that song and has a weird tunnel scene in it. In that movie, Charlie enters as a peasant and works his way up to being the owner of the empire before blasting off in a glass elevator. I might be reaching, but this could be seen as a similar journey to Thor, who starts off as a gladiator on Saga before blasting into space at the end after becoming the ruler of his kingdom. Jeff Goldblum does his best Jeff Goldblum, and we meet the Grandmaster. This isn't actually the first time that we've seen the character, as he did appear dancing in the credits of the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. He takes Thor to a party room, and here we see Loki chatting with some people. He tells a story of how he let go, which is how he exits Thor after letting go of Odin's staff. This symbolical letting go is of course also how he let go of Asgard and became the villain that turned his back on his people for the Avengers. Loki says he's never met Thor in his life, and Thor says that he's his brother, to which Loki says adopted, which is of course a callback to the Avengers as well. We meet Korg, aka the best MCU character of all time, and he's played by Taika Waititi. Korg does a rock paper scissors joke, and Meek puts up his blades like scissors. Korg steps on him at one point in the movie, so metaphorically, rock beats scissors. He also says that he wanted to start a revolution, but he didn't print enough pamphlets. Pamphlets are made of paper, so I guess that paper did defeat rock, and rock did defeat scissors. That's a rock paper scissors joke. Waititi also appears as a three-headed gladiator, and there's a reference to his other work, What We Do in the Shadows. Korg tries to give Thor a fork, which he says would only be useful if you're fighting 3 vampires, and that movie is about 3 vampires. We also see Doug in the background, who is wearing green pants, and he has a purple upper body, which is the reverse of the Hulk. Hela goes to the throne room and destroys the mural, revealing a hidden one, which also has the Triquetra within it. When the mural is destroyed, we can see that there's a crack on Thor's eye, which forces foreshadows his injury later on. We see Hela explore Odin's treasure room, and she says the Infinity Gauntlet is fake, and another big giveaway is that Thanos wears the real one on his left hand, whereas this one is to be worn on the right. Loki comes to visit Thor, and I don't know if it's intentional, but I did get a lot of aping of the scene in Thor in which Loki also comes to visit the character. Not only do we get a great Stan Lee cameo, but we can also see a bartender that looks very similar to a Celestial. I don't know if it's meant to be the same, but hey, they look alike. I worked in a bar once. Anyway, it all builds towards the Hulk versus Thor, and it's an incredible fight. We see the swords unsheathing as we mentioned earlier, and the two go head to head. In the battle, Thor discovers that his power comes from himself, and this of course ties into the end. After the battle, Thor and Hulk actually get to talk with one another, and they build a really good bromance. Hulk typically refers to himself as Hulk, like he says, "Hulk don't like this." However, here he says, "I just get so angry." This is the only time that the character uses the word I, and it shows that he's actually starting to gain a more human side to his persona. This is further hammered home by the foreshadowing of Smart Hulk, which happens when Banner looks at footage of the Hulk in the Quinjet and his face lines up with the Beast. This hints that the best way to handle everything is to meld their personalities together, and this of course comes to fruition in Endgame. We can also see that there's a bull within Hulk's sleeping quarters, and we can see that he's thrown it so many times at the wall that it's stripped away the paint. In the background of a scene, you may also notice that a ship flies up to a wormhole and it's destroyed by falling debris. Thor goes back to the Quinjet and his password is Point Break, which is what Stark called him in the Avengers. Bruce finally comes out of the Hulk, and when you think about it, this guy has pretty much gone from the events of Age of Ultron directly to this. Infinity War happens not too long after, so yeah, not a good week for him. They team up with Valkyrie, who has Loki chained up. Thor throws a can off his head to check that he's real, and he hits him square in the bunts. Later in the film, after losing his eye, he tries to throw a can at him once more, but Loki catches it. It would have missed anyway, which shows that Thor losing his eye has messed with his perception of depth. Thor also pockets Valkyrie's electronic subduer, which he later uses on Loki. Thor and Co leave Sakaar, Korg starts his revolution, and they return to Asgard to take down Hela. When Hela and Thor come face to face, they actually say a line to one another that was delivered by Odin in the first Thor movie. That quote is, "A wise king never seeks out war, but must always be ready for it." Thor says the opening part of this, which Hela finishes, showing that Odin raised them similarly. Hulk fights Fenrir, and we can also see on his chest that there's a scar from when the Abomination stabbed him all the way back in the Incredible Hulk. Banner also jumps out of the ship, similar to how he jumps out of the plane at the end of that movie, but here his fall is used a lot more for comedic effect. Thor embraces his power and he goes all out. He does a slam, I want to call it a thunder slam, but I don't know. Anyway, he does this and it really throws back the forces of his sister. We can see how far this move has come in Infinity War when he completely wrecks shop after landing on Wakanda. This was the best scene of all time, I don't care what anyone says, it still makes me want to smash stuff up. Thor at one point actually swings swords round when fighting the undead, and he holds them by the blade. The way that the handle is on them almost in some ways looks like a hammer, and it shows that he's most comfortable with his fighting style. Thor defeats Hela by unleashing Surtur, who brings the prophecy of Ragnarok to fruition. Thor sets sail into the stars with the Asgardians, and we can actually see when he sits on the throne that as Loki approaches him, Hulk makes a fist, showing that the character is still ready to slam him into the ground at any second. Thor asks where they should head to, Korg says that Meek's alive, and thank God, and Thor says, Earth it is, which is where the group end up in Endgame, though they would have something bad happen along the way, which is Thanos, who we see teased in the post-credit scene. However, at the start of Infinity War, we can see that the ship they're in splits off into two. As typical of Thanos, he let half live and killed the other half, and this half of the ship likely flew to Earth as that was supposed to be their destination. As we know from Endgame, Korg, Valkyrie and Meek were on the planet, and that is how they survived. They got their destination from Thor, and in a way it sort of brings everything full circle, ending the film and tying it in perfectly with the next. And that's our list. Obviously I'd love to hear what Easter eggs were your favourite and if we missed any. Comment below and let us know, and if you enjoyed this video then please drop a thumbs up and make sure you check out some of the insane details that we noticed in Avengers Endgame. If you want to support the channel from as little as 99 cents a month then please click the join button below. We massively appreciate it, and as a thank you get access to content early. If you want to come chat to us after the show, either follow us at DefinitionYT or click the Discord link in the description below. Those are the best ways to keep up to date with heavy spoilers, so hopefully we see you over there very soon. This is a channel for people who are super into superheroes, so if that's the kind of thing you like, hit subscribe. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. I've been Definition, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.